Page number 59. The real point of these example is not that some people have erroneous belief. It is that everyone forms stories, conceptual models to explain what they have observed. In the absence of external information, people let their imagination run free as long as the conceptual models they develop account for the fact as they perceive them. As a result, people use their thermostats inappropriately, causing themselves unnecessary effort and often resulting in large temperature swings, thus wasting energy, which is both a needless expense and bad for the environment. Later in this chapter, page 69, I provide an example of a thermostat that does provide a useful conceptual model. Blaming the wrong things. People try to find causes for events. They tend to assign a causal relation whenever two things occur in succession. If some unexpected events happen in my home just after I have taken some action, I am apt to conclude that it was caused by that action, even if there really was no relationship between the two. Similarly, if I do something expecting a result and nothing happens, I am apt to interpret that this lack of information feedback as an indication that I did not do the action correctly. The most likely thing to do, therefore, is to repeat the action only with more force. Push a door and it fails to open, push again harder. With electronic devices, if the feedback is delayed sufficiently, people often are led to conclude that the press was not recorded, so they do the same action again, sometimes repeatedly, unaware that all of their presses were recorded. This can lead to unintended results. Repeated presses might intensify the response much more than was intended. Alternatively, a second request might cancel the previous one, so that an odd number of pushes produces the desired result, whereas an even number leads to no result. The tendencies to repeat an action when the first attempt fails can be disastrous. This has led to numerous deaths when people try to escape a burning building by attempting to push open exit door that opened inward, doors that should have been pulled. As the result, in many countries, the law requires doors in public places to open outward and, moreover, to be operated by so-called panic bar, so that they automatically open when people, in a panic to escape a fire, push their bodies against them. This is a great application of appropriate affordance. See the door in figure 2.5. Modern systems tries hard to provide feedback within zero point 0.1 second of any operation to reassure the user that the request was received. This is especially important if the operation will take considerable time. The presence of a filing hourglass or rotating clock hand is a reassurance sign that work is in progress. When the delay can be predicted, some systems provide time estimates as well as progress bar to indicate how far along the task has gone. More systems should adopt these sensible displays to provide timely and meaningful feedback of result. Some studies show it is wise to unpredict, that is, to say an operation will take longer than it actually will. When the system computes the amount of time, it can compute the range of possible times. Just to show you panic bar, this is what a panic bar looks like. You might have seen these in hospitals or public places. Range of possible times. In that case, it ought to display the ranges, or if only a single value is desirable, so the lowest and longest value. That way the expectations are liable to be exceeded, leading to a happy result. When it is difficult to determine the cause of a difficulty, where do people put the blame? Often people will use their own conceptual models of the world to determine the perceived causal relationship between the things being blamed and the result. The word perceived is critical. The causal relationship does not have to exist. The person simply has to think it is there. Sometimes the result is to attribute cause to things that had nothing to do with the actions. Suppose I try to use an everyday thing, but I can't. Who is at fault, me or the thing? We are apt to blame ourselves, especially if the other are able to use it. Suppose the fault really lie in the device, so that lot of people have the same problem because everyone perceives the fault to be his or her own. Nobody wants to admit to having trouble. This creates a conspiracy of silence where the feeling of guilt and helplessness among people are kept hidden. Interestingly enough, the common tendency to blame ourselves for failure with everyday object goes against the normal attributions we make about ourselves and others. Everyone sometimes act in a way that seems strange, bizarre, or simply wrong and inappropriate. When we do this, we tend to attribute our behavior to the environment. When we see others do it, we tend to attribute it to their personalities. Here is a made up example. Consider Tom, the office terror. Today, Tom got to work late, yelled at his colleague because the office coffee machine was empty. Then he ran to his office and slammed the door shut. Ah, his colleague and staff say to one another, "There he goes again." Now consider Tom's point of view. "I really had a hard day," Tom explains. "I woke up late because my alarm clock failed to go off. I did not even have time for my morning coffee. Then I could not find a parking spot because I was late, and there was not any coffee in the office machine. It was all out. None of this was my fault. I had a run of really bad events. Yes, I was a bit curt, but who would not be under the same circumstances?" Tom's colleagues don't have access to his inner thoughts or his morning activities. All they see is that Tom yelled at them simply because the office coffee machine was empty. This reminds them of another similar event. He does that all the time. They conclude, all always blowing up over the most minor things. Who is correct, Tom or his colleague? The events can be seen from two different points of view with two different interpretations, common responses to the trial of life, or the result of an explosive, irascible personality. It seems natural for people to blame the environment for misfortune on the environment, blame their own misfortune on the environment. It seems equally natural to blame other people's misfortune on their personalities. Just the opposite attribution, by the way, is made when things go well. When things go right, people credit their own abilities and intelligence. The onlookers do the reverse. When they see things go well for someone else, they sometimes credit the environment or the luck. In all such cases, whether a person is inappropriately accepting blame for the inability to work simple objects or attribute behavior to environment or personality, a faulty conceptual model is at work. Learned helplessness. The phenomenon called learned helplessness might help explain the self blame. It refers to the situation in which people experience repeated failure at a task As a result, they decide that the task cannot be done, at least not by them. They are helpless. They stop trying. If this feeling covers a group of tasks, the result can be severe difficulties coping with life. In the extreme case, such learned helplessness need leads to depression and to a belief that the individual cannot cope with everyday life at all. Sometimes all it takes to get such a feeling of helplessness are a few experiences that accidentally turn out bad. The phenomenon has been most frequently studied as a precursor to the clinical problem of depression, but I have seen it happen after a few bad experiences with everyday object. Do common technology and mathematics phobias result from a kind of learned helplessness? Could a few instances of failure in what appears to be straightforward situation generalized to every technological object, every mathematical problem? Perhaps. In fact, the design of everyday things and the design of mathematic courses seem almost guaranteed to cause this. We call this phenomena taught helplessness. When people have trouble using technology, especially when they perceive, usually incorrectly, nobody nobody else is having the same problem, they tend to blame themselves. Worse, the more they have trouble, the more helpless they may feel, believing that they must be technically or mechanically inept. This is just the opposite of the more normal situation where people blame their own difficulties on the environment. This false blame is especially ironic because the culprit here is usually the poor design of the technology. So blaming the technology or the environment would be more completely appropriate. Consider the normal mathematics curriculum, which continually relentlessly on its way. Each new lesson assumes full knowledge and understanding of all that has happened before, even though each point may be simple one. Once you fall behind, it is hard to catch up. The result, mathematics phobia. Not because the material is difficult, but because it is taught so that difficulty in one stage hinders further progress. The problem is that once failure starts, it is soon generalized by self blame to all of mathematics. Similarly, processes are at work with technology. The vicious cycle starts if you fail at something, you think it is your fault. Therefore, you think you can't do that task. As a result, next time you have to do the task, you believe you can't, so you don't even try. The result is that you can't just as you thought. You are trapped in a self fulfilling prophecy. Positive psychology. Just as we learn to give up after repeated failure, we can learn optimistic, positive response to life. For years, psychologists focused upon the gloomy stories of how people failed on the limits human abilities and psychopathologies, depression, mania, paranoia, and so on. But the 21st century sees a new approach to focus upon positive psychology, a culture of positive thinking, of people good about oneself. In fact, the normal emotional state of most people is positive. When something does not work, it can be considered an interesting challenge or perhaps just a positive learning experience. We need to remove the word failure from our vocabulary, replacing it instead with learning experience. To fail is to learn. We learn more from our failure than from our success. With success, sure, we are pleased, but we often have no idea why we succeeded. With failure, it is often possible to figure out why, to ensure that it will never happen again. Scientists know this. Scientists do experiments to learn how the world works. Sometimes their experiment work as expected, but often they don't. Are these failures? No, they are learning experiences. Many of the important scientific discoveries have come from these so-called failures. Failures can be such a powerful learning tool that many designers take pride in their failure that happen while a product is still in development. One design firm, IDEO, has it as a creed: fail often, fail fast. They say, for they know that each failure teaches them a lot about what to do right. Designers need to fail, as do researchers. I have long held the belief and encouraged it in my students and employees that failures are an essential part of the exploration and creativity. If designers and researchers do not sometimes fail, it is a sign that they are not trying hard enough. They are not thinking the great creative thoughts that will provide breakthrough in how we do things. It is possible to avoid failure, to always be safe, but that is also the route to dull, uninteresting life. The design of our product and services must also follow the philosophy. So, to the designers we are who are reading this, let me give you some advice. Do not blame people when they fail to use your product properly. Take people's difficulties as a signifier of where the product can be improved. Eliminate all error message from electronic and computer system. Instead, provide help and guidance. Make it possible to correct problem directly from help and guidance message. Allow people to continue with their task. Don't impede progress. Help make it smooth and continuous. Never make people start over. Assume that what people have done is partially correct. So if it is inappropriate, provide the guidance that allows them to correct the problem and be on their way. Think positively for yourself and for the people you interact with. That's page number 64 done. Some part of 65, and we'll continue this tomorrow. Thank you.